I've just published my arrangement of Handel's The Harmonious Blacksmith. It's a project I've been working on for a couple of years, so I'm very excited to get it out there in the world, in your hands, and I wanted to tell you just a little bit more about the arrangement. The Harmonious Blacksmith is a fantastic piece. It's an air and variations that actually is the last movement of one of Handel's harpsichord suites. And there are all sorts of great stories about why it's called the Harmonious Blacksmith, including the idea that Handel heard a blacksmith whistling this tune. But as a matter of fact, it's almost certainly the title had nothing to do with Handel. This was a title given to this air and variations by a music publisher as a way to sell more music, and it certainly worked because the Harmonious Blacksmith is definitely the most widely performed and well-known of any of Handel's harpsichord suites. And in fact, it entered the English sort of public consciousness to the extent that Dickens refers to it in Great Expectations, where Pip is given the nickname Handel. Would you like the name Handel as a nickname? Because you had been a blacksmith and we are so harmonious. So it's a very well-known air and variations. Great fun to play. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. And it's a piece that I learned many years ago in 1992 when I first got a pedal harp. One of the first pieces that I learned was Carlos Salcedo's arrangement of the Harmonious Blacksmith. And I loved it. I remember playing it. But then I haven't played it for a couple decades. And then at some point, as I say, a couple years ago, I got this idea, this thought that maybe it could work on lever harp. Because I'm always on the lookout for sort of advanced and challenging music that would work on the lever harp. And so I started working on it, and as it turns out, it does work really nicely. I'm really happy with how it turned out. And in this edition that I'm offering, this PDF, I'm including not only the lever harp arrangement, but also two different arrangements, two different versions for pedal harp. So I'll tell you a little bit more about those in a moment, but first let me tell you a little bit more just about the tune itself. As I mentioned, this is a air and variations, which means we start with the air, with a theme. Goes on for a little bit, it's a beautiful theme, and then we get the first variation. And the first variation has the right hand playing constant 16th notes. A lot of fun to play. Then the left hand gets to play constant 16th notes. Then the right hand plays triplet 16ths, and this variation 3 is, I think, maybe my favorite variation. It's just so much fun to play. Then, of course, the left hand gets to play those triplet 16ths, slightly differently, but... And finally, both hands get to play 32nd notes. So progressively, we kind of get, it's built in that we get faster and faster notes. Great set of variations to play, so much fun. And as I say, I'm really happy with how this turned out. So I mentioned that this PDF comes with 3 different versions. There's the lever harp arrangement, which is great. It's got some C lever changes, but it's quite doable. And then there's also 2 pedal harp versions. And I conceived of this piece, of course, as a lever harp project. But in the end, I wanted to include these 2 pedal harp versions. So one of them is something I'm calling the pedal harp companion version, which is the exact same notes, exact same fingerings as the lever harp version, but just with the pedal changes marked instead of the lever changes. So that if you're like me and you play both pedal and lever harp, you can learn this and play it on either instrument without having to relearn any fingerings or any notes. And then there's the pedal harp only version. This is if you're not going to be playing it on the lever harp. So in this case, because I don't have to worry about, for example, taking notes in the right hand so that the left hand's free to change levers, I've redone some of the fingerings to make it a little bit easier to play, taking some notes in the left hand instead of in the right hand. And I think there are 4 spots in the piece where I had to leave out a note or 2 in the left hand to accommodate lever changes. So I've restored those to the original. And there's 1 spot where, to accommodate the lever changes, I had to play this C in the right hand instead of this C, which is the C that Handel wrote. And so again, in this pedal harp only version, I've restored that to the original. So it becomes very much a note-for-note transcription from the original harpsichord. Of course, there already exists 2 pedal harp arrangements of the Harmonious Blacksmith. As I mentioned, Carlos Salcedo did an arrangement of this, and also John Thomas, which I actually wasn't aware of until I started doing research for this project. But in this case, in my arrangement here, I think I'm much closer to the original. As I say, it's almost a note-for-note transcription from the original. I haven't added anything. I've taken out just a few notes actually in the theme and in the first variation, a couple of chords where having all the notes as written just felt a little bit too unwieldy under the hand. But other than that, it's exactly as Handel wrote it, to the best of my knowledge. And so I certainly invite you to check this out. Watch the music video if you haven't already. And if you'd like to learn this, buy the sheet music. Thanks for watching. Cheers.